Happy Thursday, damnation. It has been a hell of a fucking week in the United States. From a school shooting during a mass on the first day of school in Minneapolis, to the firings of a Fed governor and now a CDC director. America is in turmoil. America is in crisis. And it's all spouting from one mad man. Welcome to the Danielle Moodie Show, dear friends. Happy Thursday. I'm so glad that you're here. Let's get into it. Happy Thursday, my good damn nation friends. I am so happy that you are here. It has been a hell of a week. And I got to tell you, there's no other place I'd rather be than closing it out here on the Danielle Moodie Show with all of you. We begin today with an interview that Gavin Newsom gave with Politico. And in this long-ranging interview, Gavin Newsom is laying down the gauntlet. He is telling America exactly where we are and what we should be paying attention to. Now, for those of you who have been watching me for some time now, you know that the year started out with me calling Gavin Newsom everything but a child of God, because that's what you get when you decide to use a podcast to platform white nationalists like Charlie Kirk and Steve Bannon. And the reality is that I'm always going to keep it 100 and I'm always going to call a spade a spade. And when you do fuck shit, you're going to get called out on it. But when you actually do good things and you have had seemingly an awakening, then you will be applauded for that. And that is where I find myself with Gavin Newsom right now. I want you to take a listen to this clip of Gavin Newsom talking about Donald Trump's 2028 aspirations and why we shouldn't all be sitting around chuckling about it. Take a listen.
Donald Trump wants another election. You think for a second I have 24 Trump 2028 hats. His folks keep sending me.
And you think he's going to run again?
Don't give me. Who spends $200 million on a ballroom at their home and then leaves the house? So this is serious, guys. This is serious.
So it'll be Newsom Trump in 28.
No. This guy doesn't believe in free, fair elections. He tried to wreck this country. Were you there, January 6th? I think Fox was. At least they were in a lawsuit. They seem to have lost any memory of that. Shareholders didn't. I mean, he tried to light democracy on fire. He dialed for 11, almost 12,000 votes. Now he's doing it in plain sight. And people say, oh, it's just Trump being Trump. People actually think this guy's serious about having another election? You think he's joking about 2028? You think when he brings foreign leaders to the Oval Office and he goes to the White House store, have you seen this? Anyone? Is it just me? And he shows them the 2028 hats? He's not being serious? Wake up.
This is what has been needed, okay? This has been needed, if you ask me, and if you've been following me since 2016, when I went on air at SiriusXM with Woke AF, then you know I've never thought that Donald Trump was fucking funny. And I've never thought that anything that he has said, anything that he has offered, has been anything other than serious. And so when I listened to the beginning of that interview, and if you listen, folks, because I'm going to play it one more time, because I want you to listen to the laughter that is in the audience, as well as the flippant nature and tone of the reporter that just wants to shrug off what it is that Newsom is saying so that he can go along and ask some bullshit questions that don't actually mean anything without taking the existential threat that Gavin Newsom is laying out. Who the fuck builds a $200 million gold, gaudy, tacky ass ballroom when you got 3.5 years left? Who does that? Someone who does not have any intention of leaving. Who creates a store in the White House selling 2028 merchandise, knowing good goddamn well that the Constitution does not give you the right to run for a third time? Who brings foreign leaders to that space, handing out those hats? Do you think that this is a joke? So I want to play the clip one more time because I want you now to listen to the audience and listen to the tone of the reporter while also looking at Gavin Newsom's face and into his eyes.
Donald Trump wants another election. You think for a second you want... I have 24 Trump 2028 hats. His folks keep sending me.
And you think he's going to run again?
Don't give me... Who spends $200 million on a ballroom at their home and then leaves the house? So this is serious, guys. This is serious.
So it'll be Newsom Trump in 28.
No, this guy doesn't believe in free, fair elections. He tried to wreck this country. Were you there, January 6th? I think Fox was. At least they were in a lawsuit. They seem to have lost any memory of that. Shareholders didn't. I mean, he tried to light democracy on fire. He dialed for 11, almost 12,000 votes. Now he's doing it in plain sight. And people said, oh, it's just Trump being Trump. People actually think this guy's serious about having another election? You think he's joking about 2028? You think when he brings foreign leaders to the Oval Office and he goes to the White House store, have you seen this? Anyone? Is it just me? And he shows them the 2028 hats? He's not being serious? Wake up. You will lose your country.
You will lose your country. There is nothing funny about what is happening in America right now. It's never been funny. You see, when Donald Trump came down those escalators 10 years ago, the world was laughing. They thought, how entertaining. We get our own reality TV political show right here. They pulled out the popcorn and they kept their eyes glued to Donald Trump's every fucking move. 10 years later, this man is doing this because I want to show you an article that is up right now by another person that I don't really fucking like. But like a broken clock, you can be right twice a day. Barack Obama, not the person I'm talking about Ezra Klein, who wrote the piece. Former President Barack Obama posted this article up now at the New York Times. Trump is building his own paramilitary force. Barack Obama writes, this interview, which is also available to listen as a podcast, provides a useful overview of some of the dangerous trends we've been seeing in recent months regarding federalization and militarization of state and local police functions. This is from Ezra Klein. Trump is building his own paramilitary force. You know those optical illusions where you look at a picture and depending on where and how you focus your eyes, maybe you're looking at a vase or two faces? The image keeps flickering back and forth. Looking at the Trump administration is like that for me. Though the flickering is between this is democracy, the American people are getting what they voted for, good and hard, and this is authoritarianism, or at least the road to authoritarianism. I can see the picture of a president doing what he was elected to do. Donald Trump ran unquestionably on mass deportations. He ran on reversing a historic surge of migration into this country. He won on that platform. He's just doing what he promised. He's tripling ICE's budget. He's funneling tens of billions of dollars to build detention centers. In LA, protesters tried to obstruct him, so Trump called on the National Guard. And after years of railing about crime levels in our major cities, Trump is using the power he has over Washington to do something about it, to show Americans that he's doing something about it. I don't like any of this. I certainly didn't vote for it, but Trump promised, and Americans voted for the biggest deportation operation in U.S. history. It was always going to be ugly and cruel. So I can see that picture. And then it flickers. My eyes refocus and I see the eviscerated due process. I see detention centers being built where it's extraordinarily hard for lawyers and families to reach the people inside. I see men in mass refusing to identify themselves and pulling people into vans. I see armed U.S. troops in camo, some on horseback, riding through MacArthur Park in Los Angeles like they're an occupying army. I see Trump sending in armed forces to take over the American Capitol. What is going to happen then? What is going to happen when, predictably, a protester throws a rock at an agent or a Marine hears a car backfiring and thinks it's a gunshot? In an instant, this could all explode. You could have American troops firing on American civilians in an American city in a country defining crisis. What happens then? Because that's the other picture I see, the one that keeps coming into clear focus. Not Trump cleaning up crisis or disorder, but Trump creating crisis and disorder so he can build what he has wanted to build. An authoritarian state, a military or a paramilitary that answers only to him, that puts him in total control. And I wonder, are these pictures even different? Trump promised all of this. Is it possible to destroy democracy somewhat democratically? That's the question. That's the question. Donald Trump is using the very means and apparatus of our agencies and government systems to create the authoritarian state that he wants. And much like the audience that Newsom was speaking in front of, that was laughing and shrugging, our legacy media, as well as the Democratic Party, is basically doing the same thing. They see all of the things that Ezra Klein just listed out. They see the militarization of Washington, D.C. and the takeover of Union Station that happened yesterday. Even though the protester that threw the sandwich at the unarmed agent failed to be indicted, the fact is that that sandwich incident happened before Pete Hegseth gave them the okay to be armed. I've been talking about this now for what feels like a decade, because it has been 10 years. Donald Trump and MAGA have been prepping for this very moment. We are at their tipping point. Everything that Donald Trump is doing is about provocation. Everything that he is saying, every move that he's making, whether it is with the Smithsonian or the firing of the federal governor or the CDC, whether it is taunting democratically elected governors on social media, laying out his plans to commandeer their cities. There is no more giggling and shrugging to do. The question isn't if Donald Trump is going to declare martial law. The question is, when is Donald Trump going to declare martial law? And when that happens, all hell is going to break loose. For this interview, Ezra Klein spoke with Radley Balko, who's a journalist and has written about policing and criminal justice for decades. He's the author of The Rise of the Warrior Cop, The Militarization of America's Police Forces. And he writes the terrific Substack, The Watch, where he has been tracking the militarization and the escalation of law enforcement under Donald Trump. The fact is, I can remember back in 2013. And I can remember when we first saw, and it was about 2014. And actually, more specifically, it was August 9th, 2014. And that was the day that Michael Brown was shot and killed in Ferguson. Michael Brown was a 17-year-old Black boy. And if you remember, he had yelled, "Don't shoot." And his hands were up when a white police officer opened fire and shot him to death. They allowed that young Black boy's body to lay in the street for 4 hours in the summer sun, uncovered. And I remember, because this was at a time when Twitter, and Black Twitter specifically, was just beginning to show its power and emergence. Because almost within hours, as the community was begging for them to cover Mike Brown's body, more and more people began to gather in the streets. And then the police showed up in the most obscene, militarized fashion I could ever remember seeing. I didn't even know that local law enforcement, until that moment, had access to that kind of artillery. For 4 days, eyes were on Ferguson only because the killing of Michael Brown went viral because of Black Twitter and eyewitness reporting. And then, after a day or so, mainstream corporate media decided to get on the bandwagon and began reporting and sending reporters down. That's when we learned about cash bail and quotas. That's when we learned about the racial divide in Ferguson. That's when we also began to see that our tax dollars weren't only going to inflate the budget at the Pentagon, but that then when they were done with their little G.I. Joe toys, that they were sending them to local law enforcement to use against American citizens. The very artillery that was created for war was now being sent to police officers in towns and communities who have the audacity on their cars to have slogans like protect and serve. While their faces are covered with masks and they have AR-15s and they're riding around in tanks. So Donald Trump is only picking up where the Pentagon has been moving for decades. Our police have been militarized. While other nations don't even allow their police officers to carry fucking guns, ours already function as paramilitary. But now, it isn't just about those officers being given orders from their chiefs or from their mayors or governors. Now it's about them taking direct orders from the President of the United States. And if you remember, Donald Trump had already been priming the ground for this when he said on that stage, on that debate stage, to white nationalists to stand back and stand by. And they did. Until he directed them on January 6, 2021, to go take their country back. And then, as they swore their loyalty to Donald Trump, he promised them freedom if he got back in office. And what did he do as one of his first acts? Pardon the 1,600 insurrectionists that beat, abused, and defecated in our halls of democracy. Folks, newsflash, we've been at war. And when the former president of the United States is retweeting an article that says, hey, folks, you may want to pay attention, when a sitting governor is saying, y'all need to stop fucking laughing and pay attention to what is going on here. You are losing your freedoms every single moment that this man is allowed to remain in the Oval Office. Let me tell you, I've said for years now that things in this country would get bloodier before they got better. And we are about to enter into a stage that we have not seen since the Civil War. I wish I was being hyperbolic. I wish. Because this is a time when I would love to be wrong. But there is no action that this administration has taken over the last months that show me I am. On top of which, one way or the other, this administration is trying to kill us. One way or another, they are trying desperately to take this country out and its citizens. So last week, I told you about the new strains of COVID, how it's being seen in the wastewater in California, that there are spikes that are happening and a conversion of strains. Meanwhile, we have an absolute fucking lunatic who has no medical degree, who is a conspiracy theorist, as the head of Health and Human Services. And yesterday, he decided to announce the firing of Dr. Susan Monarez. CDC standoff. Kennedy's push to fire director devolves into chaos. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention dissolved into further turmoil on Thursday when guards escorted 3 top officials from the agency's Atlanta headquarters during the continuing standoff with the Trump administration over whether the CDC director would keep her job. The high-ranking officials decided to quit as Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. was demanding that the CDC director, Susan, I think it's Monarez, either resign or be fired in a dispute largely over vaccine policy. The White House said late Wednesday that Dr. Monarez, an infectious disease researcher who was sworn in less than a month ago, had been dismissed. But her lawyers, who said she had chosen, quote, protecting the public over serving a political agenda, insisted that she remained CDC director until Trump fired her personally. The dispute now appears to be in the hands of Trump, who has not weighed in publicly, at least as of the time I was putting this show together. A spokesman for the White House did not respond to an inquiry. I will tell you this, though, that bobblehead Barbie over in the press office was flapping her gums talking about the fact that the president has the ability to fire anyone and that she never received a vote. Really? Because her position for the first time ever was voted on by the fucking Senate, and she was appointed in a bipartisan manner by the Senate, which requires what, you fucking idiot? Votes. I digress. Dr. Monarez, facing an uncertain future at best and the agency's top ranks depleted, leading public health experts wondered aloud on Thursday whether the CDC could recover and what might happen should a pandemic or other health crisis arise. Oh, I don't know. I think something in the line of we're fucked would be that outcome. As bad as things have been since January, the firing of thousands of federal health workers, extreme budget cuts, the ongoing assault on our nation's vaccination system, what we saw yesterday was another level entirely. An extraordinary and systematic dismantling of the very top of our nation's public health system, said Dr. Richard Besser, a former acting director of the agency. In Washington, senators from both parties expressed dismay at the events unfolding at the CDC. The Republican-led Senate voted only last month to confirm Dr. Monarez. She is the first CDC director to be subject to Senate confirmation. As such, she works at the pleasure of the president, not Mr. Kennedy. The chairman of the Senate Health Committee, Senator Bill Cassidy, a Louisiana Republican and physician who voted for Kennedy after publicly agonizing over it, said on social media late Wednesday that the, quote, high-profile departures will require oversight by his panel. He did not elaborate, and his spokesman did not respond to a request for comment. But don't worry, everyone, because Susan Collins is extremely alarmed. So that should mean something. One way or another, good friends, they trying to take us out. So whether it be a Kent State led by a trigger-happy National Guard, Tiananmen Square, whether it be the happenings of another major global health pandemic that is only 5 years in our rearview mirror, or, just another shooting. So we all saw the horror that unfolded yesterday at Annunciation Catholic Church, killing 2 children and injuring 17 others. Here's what we know right now. The attacker died of a self-inflicted gunshot wound, the Minneapolis police chief Brian O'Hara said at a news conference. The authorities have identified the attacker as Robin Westman, 23, who is believed to have once attended the school at the church, Annunciation Catholic Church, according to a law enforcement official. Appearing on NBC's Today Show on Thursday morning, Chief O'Hara said officers had recovered hundreds of pieces of evidence, including further writings from the suspect. He said the investigators were continuing to search for a motive among the litany of grievances and violent obsessions that dot Miss Westman's writings, online videos, and social media posting. As a 17-year-old, she filed a court document to change her first name to Robin from Robert. The document was also signed by her mother, Mary Grace Westman, who worked in the business office of the church for 5 years before retiring in 2021. The document noted that Miss Westman identified as a female and wants her name to reflect that identification. In seemingly stream of consciousness videos that she posted, Miss Westman fixated on guns, violence, and school shooters. She displayed her own cache of weapons, bullets, and what appears to be explosive devices, scrawled with anti-Semitic and racist language and threats against Trump. In a news conference, Mayor Jacob Frey of Minneapolis, which I played yesterday, a Democrat, urged the public to avoid scapegoating transgender people in the wake of the attack. Because here's my thing. I spoke about this yesterday when reports had referred to Miss Westman as Robert. And it said yesterday that the right wing will do their number on saying, as Charlie Kirk had done, there's a pattern with 2 trans shooters. If there's a pattern with 2 trans shooters, then what does a pattern with dozens of white male shooters mean? If 2 makes a pattern so that we can attack the transgender community, then what do dozens of white male shooters do? What pattern does that show us about white male aggression? Robin Westman, whom the authorities identified as the attacker, is believed to be a former student at the school, according to a law enforcement official with knowledge of the investigation. She appears to have known the school well. Though the motive for the attack is not yet known, Miss Westman lived in a 3-story brick building in a complex in a suburb just south of the church and worked at a local cannabis dispensary for several months this year. So, what do you think? Why do you think even that Fox would have RFK Jr. on to talk about this. Again, the man is not a doctor. He has no medical license, degree, education whatsoever. I mean, at this point, I could run Health and Human Services better. Well, they have him on Fox News so that they can, pontificate on what has caused this crisis. And, for him, much like every other conservative, it's anything other than, guns. So let me play this clip for you because, oh, dear God, there are some days where I wish I didn't have to listen.
And we're still trying to get a lot of answers to a ton of questions. But the one thing is clear, you are dealing with a person who's trans, that was transitioning. Are you going to be examining at all some of the drugs that are used in order to make that transition happening, to see if it plays a role? Because we also know there was a trans shooter in the Tennessee situation.
Yeah, we are doing those kind of studies now at NIH. We're launching studies on the potential contribution of some of the SSRI drugs and some of the other psychiatric drugs that might be contributing to violence. Many of them on there have black box warnings that warn of suicidal ideation and homicidal ideation. So we can't exclude those as a culprit, and those are the kind of studies that we're doing.
So I've never seen that medicine.
I won't offend your ears anymore. These people will look for any excuse as to why we are the only fucking developed nation with a gun violence crisis. Now it's the drugs that trans people use to transition. Again, when it's the dozens of white male shooters, what's the excuse then? It's not the drugs. They're not lone wolves. It's the fucking guns. Because guess what? Robin Westman, like most everyone else, got the guns what? Legally. It's the fucking guns. Then there's this. I don't want to suffer you through this, but I feel you should hear it.
It's locked. The church is open. The kids go to mass. This person absolutely knew that they were the softest of targets. I can't stop thinking about what we were talking about earlier. How do we stop this? Obviously, we have a mental health crisis in this country. We need to deal with it. Seriously, a lot of confusion among kids, a lot of mental health, but also the very practical idea of getting retired police officers retired.
I'm going to stop you right there. And I'm going to repost what Shannon Watts said. Americans do not have more mental illness than people in other high-income countries. They do have easier access to arsenals. It's the fucking guns. Nowhere else in the world has this crisis, has school shootings every school year, every month of every school year. No one else has shootings at concerts and the mall and at churches and at synagogues, except for the United fucking States. And if your belief is seriously that people here are more mentally unstable than anywhere else, do you think that then gutting the CDC and ending research is the best method at this moment, if that's actually your bullshit belief? But alas, that is where we are. I want to close out today with Gavin Newsom again. This time, talking about his own come to Jesus moment when he realized just how serious things were. And it's important, folks, because, you know, everyone is in the midst of having their own awakening. I just pray that it's not too late.
It's made me more resolved, even more focused. I didn't hear much of that last panel, but I did hear Jim mention the recall. That's pretty clarifying. A lot of finality in that. A lot of humility in that. You don't come out of a recall campaign the same. I came into that recall campaign still arguing that all politics is local. I still had a romantic notion of that. I intellectualized that a lot of our politics and the discourse was national. I didn't fully appreciate how nationalized our politics have become. In so many ways, that shape-shifted a lot of what we're doing and who I am today. But this last year, these last 6-7 months, this is something altogether different. And I'm on the other side of any kind of hesitancy that I had prior. I'm on the other side of giving a damn about people's feelings about this moment. I will express myself more clearly and more concisely because I see the threats in very vivid terms in ways I never saw before. And I see the consequences of not just those threats from the administration, but the actions of this administration, more perhaps than any other governor in the United States, because I've seen the damage firsthand to communities, this economy, our reputation, to our allies, the world we're trying to build. This is simply the most destructive and damaging individual in my lifetime that happens to be the President of the United States, and I need to be held to a higher level of accountability as governor. So in every way, shape, or way, I have changed, and I also, as a father, as a caregiver, recognize that ultimate judgment will come from them. And even myself, when I'm done, I have to meet this moment. And so, yeah, this has been very clarifying. It's been very sobering.
The reality is, folks, it isn't just our politicians that need to meet this moment. We all do. This is our lives. This is our country. And we cannot just sit around and chuckle and think to ourselves that what Donald Trump and his sycophants are saying will not come to pass. Nearly half of Project 2025 is complete. And it's only been 8 months. We have entered into the next phase of their operation, which is full militarization and authoritarianism. We are here. I want to believe that at the time that we are beginning to see, or some others are beginning to see Donald Trump for who he is and what this administration is, that there is a collective awakening that is happening. I pray, however, that it is not too late. Because if you believe in democracy, if you believe in justice, if you believe that all people deserve to exist and be free, then there is always time to change. There is always time to wake the fuck up. So I encourage each and every one of you who show up daily for damnation and each other to continue to shout, continue to share, continue to speak out and up, continue to support local community organizations, continue to support independent media, continue to do what it is that you can where you are. Because if all of us take on a part of the responsibility of reclaiming this country, we will win. But we must first try. That is it for me today, dear friends, on the Danielle Moodie Show. I want to thank all of the super stickers and super stickers and super thanks that I received today. Thank you, Jack, for $4.99. Thank you, Susan, as always, for 10. Thank you, Ghostface Killer, for 5. Thank you, Lisa, for 99. Thank you for $1.99. Thank you, Tina, for 99. Every cent counts. Thank you, Valerie, for 19.99. Thank you, Susan, again, for 5. Thank you, Paula, for 20. Thank you, Jan, for 3. Every single dollar counts and helps me do the work that I do to give you the content and truth that you all deserve. I will be back tomorrow, 12 p.m. Eastern, with Wajahat for Democracy-ish. So do make sure to tune in. As always, content goes up here all weekend long. So do make sure to check out the shows that I post on Saturday and on Sunday. For those that are watching on Substack, appreciate each and every one of you. Understand that my content is free and will remain so. But if you have a few bucks and you have the ability to become a paid subscriber, do consider becoming a paid subscriber. But no, if you can't, just share, just like, just subscribe, just repost. It all goes a long, long way. PJ, as always, my God, thank you so incredibly much. E. Schwartz, thank you as always. Sherry, thank you so very much. That is it for me here, friends. As always, power to the people and to all the people power. Get woke, stay sane. And in these extraordinarily dangerous times, dear friends, do stay safe. I will see you back here tomorrow, 12 p.m. Eastern for Democracy-ish, and back on Monday, 5 p.m. Eastern for the Danielle Moodie Show. Be well, take care of yourselves, and take care of each other.